The Toyota Supra's ups and downs are no secret. The car left the American market in 1998, only to skyrocket in adoration and pop culture relevance with the Fast and Furious franchise in the 2000s. But the Supra was already gone, and it stayed gone until the car returned in 2020, to the scrutiny of many. Now, just as we're all starting to love and appreciate this new Supra, the car is leaving us again. When will it return? We don't really know.
This is the 2026 Toyota Supra Final Edition, and I'm Alanis King. We've reviewed the Supra on this channel before, so today I just want to talk about it and what it means to me to see it go. So let's go for a drive and enjoy this Supra while we have it. The Toyota Supra's story begins with the Toyota Celica. Toyota launched the Celica in 1970 as a response to the American pony car movement, and it was meant to blend sportiness and practicality. The Celica Supra became a six-cylinder version of that car that made 110 horsepower, and later the Supra became its own model. The second generation Celica Supra came in 1982. It was a pointier body style and had 145 horsepower. Then in 1986, we got the third generation, and that bumped it to 200 horsepower. Now this third generation was the first time that the Supra was its own thing. It was no longer a Celica, because Toyota took the Celica and made it front-wheel drive while keeping the Supra rear-wheel drive. This Supra also got a turbo edition that made 230 horsepower. Then in 1993 came the Halo car, the Mk4 Supra. The regular version of the car made 220 horsepower and the turbo made 320. But in America, sales of the Supra really slowed in the 90s, and Toyota took it off of our market in 1998. This was wild because 1998 was just a few years before the fourth-gen Supra became an automotive legend thanks to the Fast and Furious franchise. It was known for just being really cool, and also its 2JZ engine was super modifiable, so it could go really, really fast. Too bad, it was already gone. The Supra spent 2 decades off of the automotive market, and during this time, its legend status just skyrocketed. We started seeing fourth-gen Supras selling for more than $100,000 used on automotive auction sites, and this was a huge deal because no one could believe it, but also people were paying for it. In 2020, though, we got a new fifth-generation Supra, but there was one big catch. It was sourced from the BMW Z4. When you open this Supra hood, you can see its BMW lineage. There are BMW logos and labels here and here and here and other places, but it makes a lot of sense that this is a BMW power plant. Because think about it, if Toyota was going to bring back an iconic car like the Supra, it would need an iconic engine like the last Supra had. But think of all of the research and development that goes into making a new super cool inline-6 engine. It's probably not worth the money for how many Supras Toyota is going to sell. It's a lower volume car. So getting this from BMW makes sense. Because this is a BMW, it has a 3-liter twin-scroll turbocharged engine that makes 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque. That goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission to the rear wheels. And gosh, I wish this was a manual. I was thinking about driving a manual Supra for weeks, and then it showed up and it was an auto. But the auto is pretty good. And the final assembly point on this particular vehicle is in Austria. In addition to hoping this Supra was a manual for weeks, I for some reason got it in my head that it was going to be blue, and it came and it was not blue. But it actually works out really well to have this red paint because I get to match it with this jacket from our partner, Homefield Apparel. Homefield has all of the coolest officially licensed college sports apparel, motorsports apparel, Indy 500 apparel, and even some pro sports apparel. And I absolutely love that with so much of Homefield's apparel, you get to see the history behind it. This jacket is inspired by old vintage seat covers from the Indy 500, and every time I wear it, I get so many compliments. So if you'd like to check it out, you can see homefieldapparel.com. We have now made it to my favorite part of any car video, which is how many Alanises can fit in this Toyota Supra's trunk. And this, for me, This is redemption, because last time I did a trunk test in a Supra, we had this thing in there, the cargo cover, and it was almost one Atlantis, only my head stuck out of the car. So now we're removing it, and we're seeing if I can actually close this trunk. Now, while I'm getting in the trunk, I want to show you the key. And this key, I usually complain about Toyota keys because they're big and they're plasticky and they all look about the same. This is a BMW Z4 key. And it's honestly not that bad. It's still plasticky, but it's a little smaller, it's a little less thick, and overall, it just looks better than a normal Toyota key. So I'm totally fine with that. And now, here's my moment. I'm so excited for this. I've been waiting to redeem myself. Ah! Yes, it's one Atlantis in here. It's time to drive the 2026 Toyota Supra Final Edition. And in 2026, the Toyota Supra starts at $57,500 American dollars. This particular Final Edition, it's a special edition, is $71,000 after options and fees, which is a little bit more than the starting price. But I want to talk about the history of the Supra for a minute because I think it's very interesting. When the Supra left the market in the 1990s in America, it then just skyrocketed to Fast and Furious fame. And it became this thing that we couldn't have because it wasn't on the market new anymore. And people wanted it so badly and the prices went up. And we were so ready for a new Supra. Then the new Supra arrives in 2020 and it has BMW underpinnings. And I would have thought, okay, at the beginning, we'll make a couple of jokes about how it's a BMW and then we'll forget it. But that became a sticking point over the years, that this, at its core, was a BMW instead of a Toyota. Even though I think it doesn't matter that much, I think this is a very fun car, despite the fact that on the road, it's a little too confident, it's a little too composed. I would like a little bit more rear-wheel drive silliness. This is a good car. People like BMWs. And to me, it just doesn't make too much sense to complain too hard about this car existing because I'm glad to have it. Over the years, sentiment toward the 5th generation Supra, I feel like, has gotten a little bit more fair. I've always really liked the Supra, but I think what helped that sentiment become more fair, especially among American car enthusiasts, is the fact that Toyota added a manual transmission. When this car came on the market and it had all of the BMW parts and everything like that, and it was automatic only, it was just kind of unfortunate for a lot of enthusiasts who would have loved a manual sports car. When we got that manual, it was really, really exciting. This automatic is a great transmission. However, the actual shifting feel in the manual Supra is so lovely. The shifter has these nice, thick thunks into place. It's exactly what you want to feel from a shifter. And I think that's really made a lot of us more fond of the Supra than we were when it first debuted. Since its debut in 2020, there have been a few basic but big flaws with the Supra. The first that you notice immediately is the fact that this cabin is so enclosed. And that's usually not the worst thing in the world because a lot of car enthusiasts don't want a sunroof. They don't want that weight up high, especially if they're going to track the car, and they want more headroom. However, there are really thick pillars on this car. So when I try to maneuver anywhere, I just have so many spots that I cannot see. When I look over my left shoulder, I just get a black pillar. When I look over my right shoulder, I just get a black pillar. It makes it very hard to turn this car around and feel super safe without relying on your cameras. Not only that, but the it is so big. It's the size of California and it's beautiful. I absolutely love the exterior styling on this car. But sometimes, especially when you first get this car, if you are pulling into a parking space, you'll just go, how much room do I have? The outside of this car is absolutely stunning. But one of the big flaws that I find on the outside of this 5th generation Supra is that there are fake vents everywhere. And this makes no sense to me because this car is absolutely beautiful. It looks like a toy race car that you would have sitting in your playroom as a kid or in your office as an adult. And to me, to add fake vents onto a car that looks so good is just silly, because vents are supposed to make a car look more aggressive, like it needs more cooling. But if it doesn't need that, then don't put a fake vent. You need to actually make up for it in the design and make a beautiful design without having to rely on pieces of plastic that ultimately don't do anything and will make a car enthusiast not like it as much. The third big flaw of this Supra has only become evident in the past couple of years. When this car first came out, I did not mind the infotainment system at all. It was relatively simple to work. It was super easy. However, as the years have gone on, this infotainment system remains so small. Other infotainment systems continue to get bigger. They continue to get more vivid. This one is very dark. It's very clumsy to work now, especially because I've gotten so used to Apple CarPlay. It just, when I don't have Apple CarPlay on, it's not super fun to be using, and it's not super intuitive to engage with. And it's just, again, so small and so dark. The Supra's flaws are so easily shoved out of the way by how effortlessly cool this 5th generation car is. The exterior, like I said, is absolutely beautiful. I love the fact that the designers decided to make the hood really stretch over the wheels. Oftentimes, when you see a vehicle, the hood is in a U shape on the front of the car, but on this Supra, it's actually a much larger hood that stretches to the side so you don't have extra body lines, making it even prettier than it already was. The tail lights look like frozen rose petals. They are so pretty. The headlights to me are super unique. They honor the 4th generation while bringing it into the 2020s, and it's just such a good looking car. Not only that, not only is it effortlessly cool from a looks perspective, it's effortlessly cool to drive. Around town, it's just super fun to be in a Supra. It feels jumpy and sporty and everything you could possibly want around town. And then you get out on the good roads and it shifts so quickly. It gets up to speed so quickly. It sounds nice. The only real issue I've had with this 5th generation Supra over the years is that it does everything so well that it almost takes some of the character out of having a rear-wheel drive sports car. That's really been my only issue, because I love the Supra on track. I love the manual Supra. I love how it feels. However, when you're on a good road like this, like I am on right now, it lacks that sort of flaw that you would want in a rear-wheel drive car. You kind of run a rear-wheel drive car to get a little bit squirrely underneath you, to be a little bit silly to drive. And the Supra is so composed. It does everything so easily that when I'm driving on a good road, it doesn't feel visceral and wild and sporty and like I'm rallying something. It just feels like a good sports car that knows what it's doing and doesn't really need my help to stay in line. And that's unfortunate. However, you put a manual in here, and I don't care about that anymore. I'm having a great time. Toyota hasn't said much about the next Supra or when we can expect it. They've only said that the goal is for it to not take as long as this one did to replace the last generation. And if you remember, there were more than 20 years between the Supra 4th gen leaving the American market and this 5th gen showing up. So 20 years is a long time. But the thing about the Supra, and the thing I think that we as car enthusiasts need to remember with any car, is that the Supra doesn't need to exist. Automakers, from a marketing perspective, it helps them to have a sports car, because then they can say, oh, look at our other cars. They're sporty too. You'll have fun in them. However, Toyota has a lot of sports cars. Toyota didn't really need to bring the Supra back. And it's cool for car enthusiasm and for car people who really, really like driving that not only did we get a Supra, we got a manual version of it. And sure, it didn't sell at super high volume, but that's what makes it special. Because ultimately, automakers are in the business of selling cars. And if they know a car isn't going to sell super well,
and it doesn't make that much financial sense to just dive into it, I'm glad when we can get those cars because they're not guaranteed and they're fewer and further in between every single year. I drive new cars every week. I love normal commuter cars. I love especially small, normal cars. However, when I get to drive a really cool sports car and one that we don't really need to have, like a Supra, it's awesome. And I feel really grateful that I get to do this. The fifth-generation Toyota Supra had a rocky start with car enthusiasts. But first impressions are just that. There are first impressions. And a lot of times, those can change.
I hope whatever Supra comes next doesn't take too long. But no matter how long it takes, I will be so happy to be reunited when it gets here.